Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is well. Please allow us just a few minutes so that we allow a few other people to join, and then we'll start, maybe 2 minutes, and then we start. Thank you very much. Good afternoon once more. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. It's a pleasure to always have you on this board talks that we always have. My name is Katherine Musakali, and I am the chair of the Women on Boards Network. For those of you who are not our members, please do feel welcome. This is a network that brings together board members, aspiring board members, as well as our junior members, so that we can ensure that our boards, not just here in Kenya, but across the region, are more diverse than they are. So we are happy that you have joined us this afternoon, this evening, this morning, to listen to a great friend of mine who, guess what, I met on LinkedIn. So make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. It's a pleasure to have you, Naomi, on the call. And allow me to introduce our guest to you. Our guest this morning, this evening, this afternoon is Naomi Kent. And Naomi Kent is the managing director of Felix, which is a C-suite consultancy firm that has worked with a number of boards. And her career started in London, and then she moved on to New York and then Chicago in the US. She currently speaks publicly about board level topics, what boards are looking for in new directors, how to increase your chances of getting onto boards. And so we couldn't have gotten a better guest this evening to speak to us about boards in the US and in the UK. What is it you want to know about those boards? How do you get onto those boards? And I know many of you who have joined the call today really, really would love an opportunity to serve on an international call. So make sure you're belted in properly, you're ready to fly, because this evening, we're really going to fly. Naomi, this afternoon, this morning, this evening, we'll speak about how to increase your chances about getting onto a corporate board, and particularly international boards in the UK, in the US. Having a board type that you're targeting. what exactly should you be looking out for when you're looking for a board? And what in particular do boards look for in new directors? How do you network so that you position yourself for new boards? And we'll discuss a little bit about skills, experience, characteristics of boards, so on and so forth. So Naomi, I want to ask you to just say a few more words about yourself, your experience, how we met on LinkedIn, how we started a conversation about this call today. And then tell us from your experience, what exactly are boards looking for in new NEDs? Over to you, Naomi.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katherine. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm really inspired by the work that you've been doing over there. And that's actually why I reached out to you in the first place. A lot of you may know I'm very passionate about, inspiring the next generation of boardroom leaders. And the next generation of boardroom leaders are international. They are women. They are people who perhaps have been in diverse industries and have been in tech, or they have been in finance. So it's wonderful to speak with you all today. And actually, some of you have connected with me on LinkedIn. So I'm very grateful for that. And I've had an opportunity to see a little bit about your backgrounds, and I'm just very, very impressed. This picture behind me, this is Chicago. This is where I am today. But as Katherine mentioned, I work very much globally and always have had a global perspective. My background, what has sort of brought me to today and being passionate about boardroom service is I've worked pretty much all my career around boardrooms and around board directors. And so this is something that I've just been, really exposed to for many years. And I worked for a company that analyzed data on boards of directors. And so I actually saw how things were changing and things were moving across time. And that kind of inspired me to want to make a change and want to be part of more of a change. And, more recently, I think we have seen, a great deal of change at the board level. The COVID pandemic and other sort of crises, as they usually do, right? They force change right at the top and all the way down to the folks working, on the front line. And the boards need to be more equipped for the different crises that are coming, the transformation that is taking place. And so the role of the board director is getting harder. It is getting more challenging, and there is more to contend with. And so today, I hope to share some advice on how to navigate the board space, how to think through your own board career, and really starting to think about, how can you increase your chances of getting onto a board. Now, I do want to make a big plug for the Women on Boards network in Kenya. I'm really impressed. This was actually the reason why I reached out to Katherine, was because I saw that there was so much activity going on, and I wanted to see if we could bridge the gap and to see if I could learn something from what is going on. And when Katherine and I got together, we realized we were saying exactly the same thing. We were talking the same language. We're promoting, and, Katherine just mentioned, make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, right? Your brand, make sure your brand is on point. Make sure you're networking with the right people at the right time. And so it's wonderful that we're in, two different parts of the earth, but we are all really saying the same thing. So I'm very excited to be here today and to share advice about all the experience I've had with UK and US boards. Now, saying that, maybe Katherine, I'll just dive into something and then I'll hand it back to you for some questions. Just speaking about brand is very important. And one of the first things that I talk to my clients about is really understanding what boards are right for you. You know, there are international boards, there are subsidiary boards in Kenya of international businesses, or there are local Kenyan businesses that have boards. And of course, international, you have, headquarters in all sorts of different countries, which will affect the culture and will affect the business. But think through what is the right fit for you. And it may not be right now. Maybe you want to look long term and you want to look a little bit short term too. But it's really worth finding out what's right for you. And I usually have my clients ask themselves a few questions. And the first question is, what's my experience? What can I bring to a board? And what is the role of the board director, right? What is it that they do? And how can I find that? So my advice to you all is research the role of the board directors of those types of firms and try to see if there's a connection there and if you'll fit. So yeah, the brand then comes into play and the rest of it. But certainly the first step I like to talk about is, what boards work for you? Private company, a public company, large, small, a family-owned business. You have businesses that are backed by government, business that are backed by private investors. This will make a difference. And also your relationships might be heavily focused in a certain area. So I just wanted to open up with that. And I'm sure this is what Katherine is teaching everyone too, but this is something we always say is, make sure you know where you're going.
So thank you, Naomi. You talk about the fit, finding a board that works for you. How do you actually identify that fit? How do you know that you're aligned to this board? What are the sort of things you should be looking out for?
Yeah, so the first step would be researching what are the roles and responsibilities of board directors in general of different types of companies. So if you have a thought, maybe I'll be good for a private company. Find out what is a day-to-day life like, and you're part of the Women on Boards group here. So there must be plenty of members here who are on those types of boards. My advice is to just get a quick call or a Zoom, or if you can meet in person, even better, and just sort of find out, what is it that you need to be good at to be effective on that board. So that would be the first step. And then the second step would be to sort of identify, do you have that experience? Do you have those skills? I'll give you a quick example. A client of mine, she came to me and she said, I really want to get onto a public company board. And I said, that's good. It might be a long-term view. For your executive career, you'll need to build some experience on the executive side. So publicly traded companies in the United States, they tend to hire people who have been at a very senior level in a public company, or who have served on a public company board before, because it's a very different space. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the differences between a publicly traded company and a private company. So it's important that you have that experience. You need to have managed a pretty large P&L, right? That's important too. So your experience as an executive matters a lot for that public company board role. Now, at that time, she didn't have that experience, but fast forward 3 years, she did have that experience. She was board ready, and she actually got a call from an executive recruiter who offered her a board position, but she wasn't going to get that call until she had reached a certain level in her public company, executive role. So things like that, do you have the experience? Do you have what it takes? Do you have the requirements, right? So that's really important.
Absolutely. And Naomi, you mentioned networks in the context of US boards and UK boards. What networks work? What is your advice on networking?
Well, I don't think that there is, anyone out there that is not a good person, right, for you to be speaking to or to be networking with. I think it's about targeting professionals targeting people who are influential in whichever space that is, right? If it's a public company or a private company, depending on what board you're looking to join, you may find that connection. Now, a lot of you who are on the call, if you are in Kenya, you may have relationships, specific experience, or a unique value proposition because of your location. And so there may be companies that are looking for people who have that local knowledge or that local network. So by finding the people that work internationally in other countries, that might be a good strategy, right? To try and find the people. Now, you also have a lot of international businesses in Kenya. That would be a great place to be networking too. But one thing I would say, and I know this is part of what women on boards teach and how they work with their members, but making sure that you have the right narrative, the right pitch, right? If you're pitching yourself as a board director, you need to be able to have the right conversation at the right level. So I would say if you don't feel like you're ready, speak to Katherine, speak to her team, they'll get you board ready. And if you do feel like you're board ready, then it's definitely time for you to be having those more meaningful conversations. Another one piece of advice I would give, and I know, Katherine, we talked about this as well, is show up confident in what you want to do. Don't show up with I'm thinking about a board. I don't know. Can you help me? What's going on? This is not the board ready woman we're looking for, right? The board ready woman is, this is the kind of board I want to join. This is what I will do on that board. And here is my board bio or my board documents, right? Here, this is where I'm going. This is who I am, right? And being very confident about what you want to do. And there's a phrase that I use, and I might actually type it into the chat, but I advise my clients to say, I am actively pursuing corporate boards. And you can elaborate on what that is, right? Private company, corporate boards, public company, subsidiary boards, but I am actively pursuing boards. It's just a really great way. I'm going to put it in here, actually. I am
awesome. I am
actively pursuing corporate boards. This phrase is it's strong, it's active, right? Mm. And it almost shows that you're already on your way. You're not just thinking about it, right? Mm. So be confident.
And I think saying that to yourself actually helps you take action, isn't it?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Great insights, Naomi. Executive search consultants like yourself, etc., what role do they play in board recruitments across the US and the UK? Should we be all looking for, executive search consultants?
Yeah, so let me, in the United States and in the UK, the executive search firms work across the larger companies. Mm-hmm. So public companies usually use a search firm because they need to do due diligence. You need to hire a consultant, right, to get these things done. And then some of the large private companies will definitely be using the search firms. And they're the big search firms. I'm sure we've all heard of Spencer Stewart, Russell Reynolds, Egon Zehnder, Korn Ferry, and Spencer Stewart. I think I may have said that twice, but anyway, we know there's 5 of them. And the important part of these search firms is that they are usually looking for experienced board directors. But the interesting fact is a lot, and actually a much higher percentage of first-time board members have joined boards in the United States in the last 5 to 10 years. So new board members are actually getting into board seats, which I think is a big change. And the second thing that search firms do is obviously, they're very good. They have huge databases. So if a company is looking for someone really, really unique, which could be one of you, right, because of your unique experience in corporate in Kenya, then you want them to be able to find you. So introducing yourself to the search community is a very good thing. But what I would not recommend is if you think you're going to introduce yourself to the search community and tomorrow you're going to get the call, that it's probably not going to happen that way. But you should be connected to them. It's really important that they know who you are. But again, let's go back to what we said before. Don't show up to the meeting with the recruiter just like, hey, I'm thinking about a board role, right? You should be very specific about what you're doing and who you are. The confidence needs to be there because they need to believe in you. So search firms do work across the big companies. Anything else, it's very relationship based. So in other words, I've worked with Katherine before. I know and I can trust her. I want her to be, or I will recommend her to somebody I know who is looking for a board member to join the board. So that, it's on referral, but it doesn't guarantee you the place, but you might get somebody who would tell you about the board opportunity. So it's very relationship based, even at the search level. But the search firms, you'll need to leverage them a little bit, yes.
Absolutely. Ladies, get this into your heads. I am actively pursuing a corporate board, I am going to open up the discussion. But before I do, Naomi, perhaps you can just tell us what should my board profile look like if I'm looking to sit on a board in the US, in the UK? What are the key things that my board profile should contain?
Yeah, well, I think there's really no different from, the other types of board profiles. I think you need to think about your value proposition. Mm-hmm. You need to have it very clear what you would do on a board. There's things like committees that you might serve on. So putting forward all of your board experience, all of your committee experience, all of your relationships that again, thinking through what does the company want from you, right? And the company might be an international company with a subsidiary board in Kenya or something like that. And they may say, hey, we're looking for someone who has relationships in the consumer goods market or the government or the oil and gas, whatever it might be. So think through what is your unique value proposition and make sure that comes to the surface. A nicely designed, and I know, Katherine, your team are helping everybody there put together their documents, but a well-designed document, just professionally written, making sure no typos, no spelling mistakes, get some people to read over it for you. Even ChatGPT, right? Put it through ChatGPT to make sure there's no typos. I know it can do that and it can help you. So leverage technology to help you with these things. So no, I think it's really about making sure your experience is very clearly defined, but that it is relevant to the board, not to an executive, right? To an executive role.
I often get asked about personal details on board profiles, your age, whether you're married, whether you're single, etc. What is the approach of US, UK boards to that type of information on board profiles?
Yeah, that's it's a really good point. In the UK, if you have an executive, and Europe actually as well. So if you have an executive resume or CV, sometimes it does say, married, or if you have a driver's license. Some people put, if they're healthy. I've seen somebody say health, very good, right? So there's all sorts of things. But that's on the executive side. That is not on the board side. On the board side, what I have seen in the United States, there is usually a photograph and then a bio, right? Like the information about the person, where they were educated, companies they worked for, the usual, the boards they joined, etc. In the UK, it's less photo. I don't know why, it just is. I've seen less of bios with photos, but it's no problem to put the photo, right? Put the photo. I like the photo. I think it, especially again, and again, I'm going to just call out all those people who have connected with me on LinkedIn. So impressed, such great professional headshots that you have. So again, making sure you have that board look, right? You look like a board member, and you have a nice professional headshot. That will make such a difference to creating the brand, and you can use it on LinkedIn.
Not taken using my mobile phone.
yeah, the selfie. Well, actually, you could use a mobile phone, but you might need some online technology to make it look a little better, right? So you can do some little tweaks if somebody has some software. I know there's some free software online that can edit photographs, but it really, I think it's the difference between the two is more around when it comes to the board. They are very, very similar. Obviously, spellings are different. You have to be aware of language. So if you're applying to a board in the United States, you'll need to use some of the spellings and the language that the Americans use. And if you're applying in the UK, you may have to shift it a little bit. If you're unsure, I'm sure, again, this is a phenomenal network of women. I'm sure you can put a note out to say, hey, would anyone be open to just reading over, my bio or my board documents that are about to be sent to a UK company? And I'm sure somebody would be able to help there, because I know you're such a wonderful community here. So
Awesome. Ladies, I'm going to come to you in a minute. Naomi, my last question before I open up is, in the event I'm invited to an interview, a board interview, how do I show up?
Very good question. So interviews in the United States and in the UK are a little different, and also depending on the company. So let's start in the USA, and I'll talk about those, and then I'll talk about the UK afterwards. So in the USA, if you're in a very, very small company, it can be very informal. You might meet with the CEO to start, right? And then maybe some of the board directors, or you might meet with the legal counsel, or some sort of company secretary. Isn't really a role that exists that much anymore. It's starting to disappear. So the general counsel seems to be taking out on more of that role. But generally, you'll find it might be quite informal. So you might have a Zoom. I know people who were hired onto boards exclusively from Zoom, especially during the pandemic when nobody could travel, or it was difficult to travel. So, and then as the companies get larger, the process does get more formal. So you need to be ready for that. And sometimes they will invite you for lunch or dinner. And I think that I'm probably speaking exactly what would happen for Kenyan companies too. So I don't think there's a huge difference there. Yeah. So they might want to meet you. They might want to learn more about you. In the United States, they may even say, bring your partner, bring your spouse. They might want to learn about your family, especially at a public company. This is the very large public companies. And more because they want to get to know who you are, right? It's really important that they have that transparency. So it's a broad range. It can be very informal. It can be very formal. I have seen one-on-one interviews on Zoom. I've seen panels. So a panel of people lined up, right? All on the Zoom, and you're taking questions from people. Yeah, you're very much put on the spot. But I do have one piece of advice, which is if any of you are doing a Zoom interview, the benefit or the advantage that you have is that you can have your notes, right? You can have all your items that you're going to say. You can have preparation notes, right? So take advantage of that opportunity and have all the different points that you would like to make on that interview. Now, if it's in person, you can still have notes. You can have them in front of you, but I think it's a little harder. But now, in the UK, let's talk about the UK. So a number of board opportunities are actually advertised online in the UK. I'm sure a number of you may have seen this already. The USA rarely advertises a corporate, for-profit board role online. But in the UK, they're advertised pretty openly, actually. And in many cases, the first is a call with maybe the HR person or the board member or somebody, again, the general counsel, somebody in a legal position, may even be a CEO at a very small company. So same sort of thing. With board interviews in the UK at the larger companies, they are very formal. So, but do expect to have a little bit of a friendly conversation when you start the interview, right? Again, this is a cultural thing that is different everywhere. Every country you go to, there are different cultural norms, right? So really important to kind of just read up on what should you expect. This is just a funny joke I make, but in the UK, we're always talking about the weather because the weather is so bad, right? So, maybe that's a topic of sort of breaking the ice, right, with everybody. So no, I think they can be very informal. They can be formal. What I think you should do is anytime someone approaches you and says, hey, there's a board opportunity, we would like you to talk about it. If it's a search firm, some of your first questions should be around, the time commitment. What is the interview process like? You should be asking these questions. So sometimes it's thrown at you and you have no time to prepare. But if you can ask some of these questions up front, that can be helpful.
Any advice around, dress code, makeup, those sorts of soft issues? Any advice around that?
Yeah, I think, think about who your audience is, right? Who is your audience? What industry is this? I've seen people go to a tech company interview with not even, just a jacket, very cool, very relaxed. But maybe if you're going for a board interview at a bank, you might want to wear the full suit, right? I mean, I almost think dress for your audience. Now, for the smaller companies, again, it may not be, such an important piece, but at the bigger companies, you definitely want to dress a little bit more conservative. And in the word conservative, I mean, no need to wear the bright yellow jacket, maybe tone it down, maybe, just conservative in the sense of blending in, right? Yeah. With all with the other board directors. The other one piece I will mention though, is don't try and not be yourself, right? If you go to a board meeting and you like to wear the yellow jacket, and that's not an environment, maybe that's not the right board for you, right? And you should be looking for boards where the culture is a good fit. We all have to adapt a little bit, okay? But we shouldn't have to change who we are to adapt to a company. So I would say if you have a certain way of doing things, and something is really important to you, then you should make sure that you find the right board that fits your profile. But yes, dress code is important. If it's a Zoom, try not to have too many things behind you that are distracting. Nobody walking behind, make sure that, you can sort of see you're sitting up. Right, you're not sort of in a chair where you're starting to kind of go down, and so the clothing does matter. But on a Zoom, it might not be as obvious. So there's lots of things to consider when you're doing a Zoom interview, and I've done a lot of sort of training on that in the past. But and then in person, obviously, I think it's really the basics, just making sure that. You're feeling confident in what you're wearing, right? You don't want to, if it's something uncomfortable, sometimes you lose your confidence because you're like, oh, these shoes don't fit, or this dress doesn't fit, or, so just be comfortable in whatever it is that you're wearing, because you need to be focusing on what you're saying, not, worrying about, if your shoe's going to fall off on the way in to the interview. So it has happened before, I'm sure.
Awesome. So make sure spouse is on best behavior and he's not passing behind you in a towel to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's happened. It has happened. Yes, it has happened.
I am actively pursuing corporate boards. Ladies, this is your chance to ask any questions or make any comments at all. So who would like to go? Who would like to go first? Just unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question. So as we wait for somebody to ask any question, there is a question here from Kate Njoroge that says, how can women from Africa take advantage of diversity needs to get onto boards in the US and in the UK? And perhaps related to that question, Naomi, if you have had any chance to place any women or men from Africa onto US, UK boards, please tell us a little bit about that process. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So it's always a challenge around the world to get onto international boards, mainly because a lot of companies, and I'm sure it's the case in Kenya too, a lot of the business is done within the country, right? So you need people with local knowledge. However, I did mention before that I think the value proposition that a lot of you will bring, and I see a lot of C-suite executives and people at international companies, those are the people who have connected with me on LinkedIn. I've noticed that. And so your local knowledge in Kenya could be very relevant to a company that is maybe making a major investment in Kenya or has already made a major investment in Kenya and wants a local thought leader, someone who understands the market, to be part of their board. So just thinking through, what makes you different and what makes you unique. And again, as the person who's asked the question has mentioned, creating that diversity of international as well, right? So really it's, I think the big draw for a lot of you will be your local knowledge, your knowledge of the consumer base in Kenya, and really leveraging that. Now, do we see people from different countries move onto boards? Yes, absolutely. But I would say the number one reason is because that company is branching out, they're going international, they're moving into a different country, and they need a representative, right? They need somebody who can speak on behalf of the investment that they're making. So for some of you, it might be, you might end up on subsidiary boards, right, of some of the companies that you work for, maybe as an executive, maybe as an outsider, or there might be other companies that need your, kind of expertise and knowledge of the local region. So I think that's the way. And then the other way would be to really hone in on the search firms, right? Make sure that they know who you are. And actually, I will write in the names of all the search firms. I saw someone had started to write those, but there's Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart, Egon Zehnder, Korn Ferry. So those are the big global firms. So they will probably have some kind of presence in Kenya or in Africa where you can, join, connect the dots and actually meet with those people. So I think it's worth it. And I think that the more that you have, a larger role in your executive company as an exec, that makes a difference. If you can be managing a large P&L, the more relationships you build, government relationships, business relationships, that increases your chances as well. So it is diversity, but I think play to your strength, which is this local knowledge that you have of, one of the largest, regions in Africa. So really important.
Absolutely. Ladies, anybody ready to ask their question? Just unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question. Any of you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. So hi to my friend Katherine. Thanks for the presentation. I want to find out, are there any educational qualifications that one might need to have? For example, let's say finance, law. And if you don't have those qualifications in finance, maybe law, what other professionals or what other educational qualifications do you need to get into a board?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't see who asked the question, but thank you so much for asking that. I get this question a lot, actually. Faith. Thank you, Faith. I get this question a lot, and I certainly don't want you all to run out and try and, get some new qualification or change careers, right? Because you think that it's going to help you get onto a board. So I'm going to go a little bit more broad for you all. Corporate boards are attracted to people who have managed large P&Ls, right? Large profit and loss divisions of companies, right? So you could be a division president or you could be the CEO, right? So either of those two. Finance, you did mention finance. I mean, again, I'm not going to lie here, of course. If you're a CFO, so a chief financial officer or a finance director, your chances of being on a board are higher because you have the elements of understanding how a business operates and you know how to manage, the finances. And that's so important. When it comes to, international business experience, really important. P&L management, you do need to have a very good understanding. You need to be able to think strategically, right? And when I say think strategically, it's not about doing the work. Obviously, the work that you did is important, but it's sort of the way you think through problems and solve problems. And do you ask questions? Are you curious? Right. And these are all sort of softer skills that all of you can build. Right. And if you're not sure, again, if you're in a company right now, ask your manager, ask one of the leaders, how can I build strategy, skills in strategy? Well, what do I need to do? Some people get, MBAs, Masters of Business Administration from universities and things like that. But I think that's good. And those of you who have them, that's great. You can also learn a lot of these skills in the companies that you're at. So I would be looking to that. I'll mention this. There's three things, just three things that boards care about. They care, can you grow my business? Mm-hmm. Can you transform my business? And can you mitigate risk? And generally, CEOs, CFOs, people who have managed large businesses, they do those three things every day. They're managing transformation, they're growing the business, and they're always thinking about risk. And strategy is all of those three things, right? Strategy comes across all of them. So maybe that's my advice to you all is, have you been involved and are you growing businesses? Is that how you think? Are you transforming? Are you open to change, right? There's new technology. There's new systems that are out, right? There's new people coming up through the ranks, right? The younger generations, right? Are you open to this kind of change? And do you think about transformation? And then finally, how do you think about risk? Right. Katherine's also part of the governance, this organization that works across governance. And, that's what governance says a board member needs to do. Right. They need to be thinking through the risk associated with building a company and transforming a company. So really, really important that you focus in on that. So there are, qualifications and certifications you can get. Those will help with your confidence. So for those of you who are already on boards, you're probably like, I got the confidence, no problem. But maybe there are some of you who've never, you're here for women on boards because you want to explore it. Maybe it's in your plan for the future. You're ambitious. I congratulate you all for being here and for thinking this through. A qualification or just learning about board service will help with your confidence in understanding what it is that you should be doing and what your role is. But it won't automatically get you a board seat, right? People don't go, oh, you've got this qualification about boards, come join our board. But it really, really helps with having the right conversations and knowing some of the board level topics.
Great. Thank you, Faith, for that question. Any other question, ladies? Anybody wanting to ask a question?
Hi, Catherine, and hello, Naomi. Thank you for the evening and the presentation. Mine maybe it's just on the area of, okay, personally, I'm in a male-dominated environment always. And so you'll find that even when we are in meetings, when we are even on boards, you'll find that there's always that dominance that comes down. And so maybe something I would like to ask is on how do we leverage our strengths in male-dominated boards or corporate boards, and what would really impede us when we in such positions, especially when we are outwardly looking to partake of the same and even grow the same fields and even impart our knowledge and even the difference in the organizations we serve.
Thank
Great
you, Josephine. Thank you. And very relevant, actually. So if you look at the statistics, I think every single woman on, and it's pretty much all women here, but every single woman on this call today is probably saying, yeah, me too. I'm in the male because men do make up the majority of the corporate seats, right? I mean, it's a cultural thing. It is the way it is. It's the same in the United States. When you get to the C-suite level, it is 30% women. Okay. When you get to the board level, it's about 30% women too in the United States. In the UK, it's probably around those numbers as well. Maybe the boards are a little higher. And in France and some other countries and Sweden, where they have actually adopted some rules around women on boards, it's actually around 40 to 45%. But we all work in these environments. So we're all dealing with this, and it's a unique experience, I think, for everyone, depending where they are. My advice to you all is, first of all, you should take a minute to just congratulate yourself, right? And to say, well done, like this is a huge achievement. You're a very small percent of the population who has risen to the ranks that you're at. And the fact that you're on this call today means that you're even smaller percentage of women who are really ambitious, right? And you want to be on boards and you want to take your career to the next level. Some of you may even have families as well. So you're juggling all these things that are going on, right? So first of all, don't this is a tough situation for all of us, but you should also congratulate yourself and be grateful for the fact that you are in the position you're in. So you're in a great position. Environments and work environments and board environments are tough for everyone. People, you often see people, oh, they're the CEO of the company or they're on these boards, and you think, oh, they had it easy. Every single board director that I interview and that I work with, all they tell me is how they failed, right? How they failed to get on a board, how they didn't get on a board, and then finally they got on a board. So sometimes we see other people's success and we assume that it's always been easy for them, but it hasn't always been easy. So all of us here, we're all looking at the same challenges as well. I think having the confidence that you have is really important. So continuing to build that confidence. The other thing I would say is build solid networks with the men and with the women, right? Professional networks that will last a lifetime. So that's really important for you growing your career and growing your board career. So always be mindful of sort of growing your network. And then finally, always show up with that, with the mindset of, yes, I'm learning, but I'm confident in what I do, and I think you can get past a lot of things. But all I'll say is, I think everybody has a bit of a hard time. I think it can be a challenge for everyone. I don't know, Katherine, if you want to jump in there with some other comments of things you've seen, but that's certainly my perspective. Is you need to come at this. It's not easy. It's not easy, right?
Absolutely, it's not easy, and. We all deal with different types of dominance in one way or the other. And it's how you sell yourself and how you position yourself that really matters. Great.
And being around the right people, right? Surrounding yourself with great people, I think is also important. So make sure you're in the right place. But I will say to everyone here on the call, you know, you are the top percentage of high performing women in the world, right? So you know, let's tap ourselves on the back here. I think we've done an amazing job so far. But you know, being successful and getting to these high positions, getting onto boards, it's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So we gotta get down and get it done. But I think a lot of you have already had a lot of success so far, which is wonderful to see.
Absolutely. And let's remember, ladies, I am actively pursuing corporate boards. Keep that in mind. Rose, I can see your hand is up. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, Katherine. Thank you for the presentation. No, I think I was just going to comment on the last question around male-dominated boards. So I personally sit on a board with, how many directors are there? There are 12 men, and I'm the only lady.
Nice.
And
I'm holding my head. I'm holding my head.
And if you know anything about tea business in Kenya, it is highly, highly, highly political.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, of course, when you come in, you know, you're probably the youngest, the only lady, and very quickly, everybody thinks that you should be the one serving tea and praying. But what I've tended to do to stand out is, one, I have taken time to understand how the business generates value. I read every single board paper, have it analyzed. Where I don't have an understanding, you know, reach out to the finance department to understand the numbers. And so when I show up for the board meeting, I show up not only just with confidence, but with knowledge as well. And over time, anytime there is a problem that is analytical or requires an analytical answer, they all look at me and say, Rose, would you like to take this up? So I've had to gain that confidence by understanding the business and demonstrating value. And where I don't know, I find somebody who does and I learn through them. So it is possible, ladies. And you know, my name keeps coming up for opportunities to analyze projects, to do financial due diligence. I'm not necessarily a finance person, but I think over time I've been able to earn that spot. So it is possible, but it should never be looked at as a gender issue. Bring yourself and put your hand up for these opportunities, and the men will be able to respond accordingly. So just thought I'd share my experience.
Wow, wonderful. Let's clap for Rose. Well done. And I'm sure, Rose, the men will say there is no quorum the day you don't attend the meeting, even if they're all present. So well done.
I want to actually just, can I just add a real quick point? Rose, you mentioned, you know, you don't look at the gender, and it's a very good point. I actually interviewed a woman who had got to a very, very high position in the military in the United States. And she sits on, I think, 2 boards, and she's maybe going to sit on a 3rd one in a couple of months. But I work with her, and she says she don't care. She's like, my entire life, I've been the only woman in the room. She's like, that's no problem for me. And to your point, we've got to stop looking at that, right? And we are going to be the only woman in the room sometimes, maybe one of 2. And so, but we need to know that we are there because of merit. We're there because of our experience and who we are. And so, yeah, so I agree with you. I think it's your environment too, right? The woman I know, she was like, I have no problem being the only woman in the room. I'm always the only woman in the room, right? So we get used to it. I like it.
Absolutely. Bring your A game to the boardroom. Barbara, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Naomi, for the wonderful insights. I think my question is to you guys, it's on age. I know for a very long time, board positions were reserved for a certain age, perhaps because of the experience that is required. So how can a young person under 40 package themselves and perhaps get to sit on a board? Or do we wait until we get to 50?
Okay. Yeah, no, very.
And Naomi, as you answer that, I can see a related question from Monica. Is there an age limit? to be a
Yes.
board director. I think traditional board members are senior citizens. So maybe you can combine the two.
Yes, I will. Okay. Let me talk about the age. Now, have I seen people under the age of 40 join boards? Yes, of course. It's all about the value proposition, right? What's your experience and what do you bring? Okay, so finding the right board. Now, I would recommend people under the age of 40 or in their 40s start building their board career, because you never want to just be, 60, about to retire, and then you go, right, where are my boards? And everyone around you has 10 years of board experience, right? Or 15 years. So my advice is to start small. There are committees, and again, I don't know the Kenyan environment as much, so maybe somebody can pitch in and help me here. But are there committees at companies that you can join? In America, we call them advisory boards, where it's more of an advisor role. Do you have charities where you can be on their boards and then you learn about governance? What are some of the things you can be doing outside of your company? Inside your company, is there a committee? Is there a leadership team of a particular area that you can join, or I don't know, something that you can lead? So start thinking through. I agree with you. If you're under the age of 40 and you're in a junior level position as an executive, the chances of you joining a big corporate firm is low. I think we'd all agree with that. But you can start to build your board experience and start networking with the right people at any age. So get out there. I joined my first nonprofit board when I was 28 years old. And then I joined an advisory board at 36, 37 years of age. And now I'm 45 and I've been on a couple of other advisory boards and things like that. So I'm doing exactly the person who asked the question. I'm sort of doing what you're doing, right? I'm sort of slowly building you don't have to do it all in one go. You've got a job to do. You've got work and family and things going on. So you've only got a little bit of time to dedicate, but dedicate a little bit of time to building your board career. The types of people that do get onto boards that are very young, there's a couple of different types. I'll tell you what I see. I see private equity firms. The people at the private equity firm will sit on the board. Generally, those people are, again, the top echelon of, people in the business. So again, it's, education, experience, etc. So I don't know if that is the profile of every single person. Is very, very niche. And then the other type of person is someone who may have built a business and sold it at a very young age. And maybe it's in a technology that is very unique, the metaverse, AI, something that's brand new. Somebody in their 40s or 50s, they're not going to know what it is, right? But maybe somebody in their late 20s is going to understand AI, bring that person onto the board so we can learn from them. So that can help. But it's rare. It's very, very rare. Now, with the age limits. So let's now bounce to the other end of the spectrum. In the United States and also in the UK, public companies, it's recommended, public companies only, recommended retirement age for non-executive directors, supervisory directors is around 70 to 72 to 73. So if you're 67, 8, and you've never served on a public company board, you might. I'm not saying you won't, but your chances are getting lower. So yes, age at the end of it does matter. Yeah. However, I have good news. Private companies do not have these types of requirements. So it's actually interesting you asked this question, because I'm working with one of my clients here at the moment. She has been on 5 public company boards. She is 73. And of course, she's getting off the boards. They're saying, hey, you're getting to an age we want to bring somebody else in. And she totally understands that. So now we're working with her to shift her focus to private company boards, family-owned businesses, private equity. They love people like her. She's very active. She is not, she can take a lot of work. She's happy. She travels, she doesn't want to sit still. So she's going to get really active in the private company space. So good news, if you're looking for a board and you are approaching that retirement age, shift your focus to private companies. You'll be fine. There's no age restrictions on private companies.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Imelda, I'm going to come back to you. Before I do, I've just noted a great friend of mine on the call. And this is a young lady I admire a lot. This is a lady who's young, but who's chairing a board of only men. Mercy Okiro, I can see you on the call. Would you like to share your experience with us? How has that been? Was there acceptability? Did you have to really fight your way to recognition there? How has it been? Please share your experience with us. Mercy?
Okay. Hi, Katherine. Hi, everyone. Hi, Naomi. I'm in the kitchen dressed like a potential housewife, so I will apologize. I will not show my face, but I hope you can hear me clearly.
No board interviews just yet, right? Not a board interview.
Yes.
But I love your profile picture. You look great. So
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so for me, my only intervention would be around, three things quickly. The first was around the thing of age. I'll say that I sat in my first board at 26. And really, it was a matter of being part of the organization. This is a Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, just doing voluntary work. And then when the elections came, the members had seen me enough, so they just voted for me. So, of course, that, and actually I sat in so many other boards for no money. And I know usually the thing is, okay, I want to join a board that pays, but I sat in boards for no money until 33, thereabouts. And then at around 33, that's when I got into this public sector board. So perhaps the thing I'd say is just be visible. And of course, don't ignore voluntary boards. When you think about it, by the time I was 33, I had racked up experience in like maybe 5. So that also helped. The second thing is sometimes being a subject matter expert helps you, so that they may not necessarily want you because of maybe the diversity thing or whatever, but if they need, and so for you perhaps is to look at the things that really have a gap, like risk management, or even in your own field, just be so good that people will just need you. Number 3, my experience, now that Katherine, you asked, I laughed when Rose was speaking, Rose sang, because I also sit in a public sector board where I'm the youngest. So far, I'm the only woman and I'm the acting chair. So, of course, when I joined the board the first time as just an ordinary board member, I actually applaud women on boards because I watched all the videos on YouTube before I became a full member. Things about how you appear. And I remember for me, my strategy, like I'll always say strategy is everything. I bought trousers first of all, because I know, and I think the women on the call, being this jurisdiction, Kenya, you know how you appear if you're young on a board, people will start attributing other unsavory things to you and how you got there. So I said for the first time, maybe the first year I'll only be in trouser suits, so that I just look like them, but not like, of course I'll wear my red, whatever, bright colors. So how you dress, first of all, I'll also agree with some, you have to read board papers, so that at some point, when a matter is of serious concern, for that expertise you are on the board for, people will literally at some point just have to turn and wait to hear your comment, because it is really your view that they respect on that area. So you have to read those papers, like all of them. The third thing, and this I also learned from women on boards, is don't be too pressed. And for me, that is truly the only takeaway I'd say. If there's anything else, don't act like a man, because you will never be a man. Mm-hmm. Explore what as a woman, the things like empathy. Like for me on my board, I started this whole birthday thing. Nowadays, every day with a board member's birthday, I'll do a birthday. I organize socials every quarter. We just go and eat nyama choma, because I'm trying to show that I'm not so dangerous. But really, I am dangerous. But you will never be a man with that aggressiveness, because men are cutthroat. And I know people will say gender equality, but they truly are. So for me, I always say I'm a baby girl. I just need to know when to strategically use information and keep my ears on the ground. It is in those socials that I gather information. I know who is displeased with what, so that I know how to manage the situation. The last is I just pray and do professional development, attend courses, read things, talk to women like Katherine. She's my mentor. I see Eva Moriah also, and a few people here who've been in boards and who really held my hand when I've felt a bit lost. So that's all, and all the best.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Katherine.
Wow, well done. Clapping for you, Mercy, and keep doing what you're doing. Imelda, let me come to you. Unless, Naomi, you would like to make any comment on what Mercy has shared.
No, I think I ditto and understand everything she said. I know there's a lot of people also talking about non-profit boards and pro bono boards. I have two things you should ask yourself when you are going to join a non-profit board. One, is the cause of the non-profit or the charity or the pro bono, is it something that is really close to you, right? Do you care about it? You know, don't just join a non-profit board because, like, it's got to be something you care about. Number two, who is on the board? Okay. If the other people on the board are not professionals, or they're not people that, you know, you're more senior level than them, you're more established than them, you're more successful than them, that's not a place for you, right? You want to be around people that are going to be making you go higher, making you better, right? You want people that you think, wow, I'd be sitting around a boardroom table with these amazing people. That's the kind of thing you want to be saying. So think very carefully about the nonprofit. Don't just jump into anything. It's got to be right for you. You're going to spend your spare time on this. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Imelda, let me come to you now.
Thank you, Naomi and Katherine. I can remember Mercy and the others for your very good comments. I'll also not show my face because there's a blackout where I am. But my question is around...
I shall not disclose where you work.
No, I left.
Oh, okay.
I left, that's why there are too many blackouts. But my question is around qualifications. Normally, when board placements are asked, they normally ask for CFOs, people with financial background. They ask for HR experts. They ask for human resource. And I've always wondered what other people like us who are of technical background should go, because I've never seen any board that asks for maybe somebody with engineering expertise. Is it the same in the US and Britain? Because here in Kenya, they always look for people with finance, people with HR, people with lawyers, and then some of us are just, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, Imelda, I hear you. There is a demand for people with technology skills, innovation as well, people who are innovators, who are looking to the future. However, it is not, let's say this, it is not a, you're just going to be a tech person on the board. You need to know a little bit about all the other things. So my advice to you would be, if you don't feel like your skills in finance are very good, build those, because that you do need that. You don't need to become a CFO, but you need to know a little bit about these things. So I would say get more of a broad, and even if your executive role, if you have the opportunity to do more general management roles, take that on, managing P&Ls, managing groups, managing divisions. But no, I think in the United States, yes, they do bring on a lot of people with a tech, with understanding of technology. And that tends to happen when the CEO is not a tech person. So if you have a salesperson as a CEO, like they come from a sales background or they come from a finance background, they might be thinking, God, I would love to have somebody on my board who can tell me if I'm investing in the right technology or not, or if I'm thinking about my business in the right way. So they do want that. Yes, I do see it asked for. But my advice to you is, if you're not seeing it, create your brand so that it is more general management brand versus uniquely technology, and you say human resources and all this kind of stuff. yes, but they mainly want you to know about a business. They want you to know how to manage a business. So it's about your pitch, and it's about how you how you present yourself to these boards. So that would be my advice. I don't know if that's been helpful to you, but really think through your a little bit about a lot of things is kind of my advice.
Great. Josephine, I'm coming to you. Naomi, maybe you can just, tell us a little bit about social media footprint and whether US, UK boards attach any importance to your social media footprint.
Yeah, so I would say public companies, absolutely, 100%. And in fact, a public company, if they are going to hire you onto the board, part of the due diligence that Spencer Stewart and Egon Zehnder and all those guys, what they do is they will look at your social media. So they'll look at your Twitter feed, they'll look at your Facebook. And I have heard stories, I haven't seen it firsthand, but I have heard stories of people being very political, very outwardly political, or very outspoken about a certain topic. And it's not that the topic is relevant to the company. They just see a risk there with someone who might be a little bit too vocal, a little bit too public. So I would say that's definitely something I see. Private companies, unless it's really bad, then yes, they would probably say no, but it's less so. What they will do is they will Google you. They will see if there's any articles about you, anything that you did. I'll tell a very funny story just quick. I had a client of ours that came to us and he said, he's British. And he said, I think I want to get on a board, but I don't think they want me. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, don't Google me. And so of course I did. And this guy in the UK, he'd been running an investment banking group. And this article came up. This is no joke. The article came up and it said, his name, head of investment banking, pictures taken at a Christmas party. And, he was dancing naked on the table. Right. And this is an investment bank. Right. So I said to him, is this true? He said, well, I had underwear on. So, these things are going to come back. And telling a funny story, I'll tell a more serious story. I had also another client. Her company had been through a major fraud investigation. And she was fired as the CEO. She was not committing the fraud, but someone in her team was. So they got rid of the CEO to get rid of, all of the problems. She found it very, very difficult to get on a board. I think in the end, she ended up joining a small private company, but she wanted public company because that was where she had been. But because of her fraud investigation, no one wanted to be involved. So definitely having a good history, good social media, some squeaky clean background. But I mean, a lot of you are working for big international firms, so we would expect some of that due diligence to be done as well. So
great. I see a branding guru on the call, Eva Muraya. If you were to give us 2-3 things about building a board brand, what would you say?
Executive presence. Mm-hmm. So executive presence is about, and there's a number of different things. Probably it's best to kind of Google the term for you all, what is executive presence? But for me, it's the look. We talked about, board look, looking and feeling like a board director. It's also how you speak and what you say. Are you experienced? Do you know board topics? Somebody early on, sorry, I forgot her name. She was talking and she was saying, you need to know your stuff, right? You need to have done work. You need to be prepared. That's executive presence. And then also having the confidence, and especially with, again, a lot of you will be the only woman in the boardroom, having that executive presence will also help you through those difficult times when perhaps, people are disagreeing with you. So I would say executive presence is one. I would say probably the other thing would be really looking at, your ability to be strategic and think strategically, right? Mm-hmm. And if there's you'll be in that interview and they'll be talking, every question you ask is being, evaluated. So the more strategic you can think and the more you can put yourself in that position, the better. So those would be two big things that I would say to kind of work on. But I know, again, a lot of you, and I'm saying this like I know you all, but I can tell that if you're part of this group, you're high flying, ambitious women. And so this is probably all not new for you, but definitely at the board level, it increases.
Thank you very much. Eva, any additional words on branding?
Yeah, I think, when you think about LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is a big portion of it. Make sure you have a professional headshot. Make sure that you have listed all of your roles and all of the companies that you work for. You have tagged them all to the company page. Makes a big difference when recruiters are looking for people. I have a client of mine. He had his entire profile with the companies did not connect to the company page. And he simply changed that. And he was looking for a job. This is an executive role. He got all these phone calls from these recruiters and he's like, I don't know what changed. And I said, he said, I think it's because I put the right information into LinkedIn. So make sure that is all there. If you have any volunteer board positions, put them in, and make sure that, when somebody looks at your profile, they don't see the person you're at the moment, but who you want to be. Right. So sort of dress for the role you want, not the role you have. So make sure that it's visible. And then, of course, branding is every single moment, right? The Zoom call that you're on with the video, right? That's your brand. You're building your brand every minute. Some of you were like, I don't want you to see me in my kitchen, right? With my that's fine, right? But if you are going to go onto video, you need to continue showing the right brand everywhere you go. So interactions with people, informal interactions with people, you have to be consistent, right? You have to be showing up consistent, because one day I might meet you once and I have a great impression of you, and I'll remember you one day and say, oh, that person, I remember they worked in this company or something. Who were they? Let me go back to that person. And if you've made a bad impression just that one time, it can make a difference. And then finally, branding is also paperwork, right? And I know your organization helped people with building that. And I talked about it before, a professional bio, a professional board resume, board CV, these things are all really important for you to increase your chances of getting a role.
Great. Your profile should speak to the person you want to become. Naomi, you mentioned tagging the companies you work for. And I see Tuta has a question there in the chat. Tuta, do you want to ask your question? Okay, maybe I'll ask it for her. She says, what happens if the company you work for in a leadership position suddenly gets adverse press on ESG issues? And it could be anything else. Even if you do not work there anymore, how do you run away?
Okay, well, first of all, it depends what role you were in. Okay, so if you were the CEO of the company, then you should absolutely be worried. A little bit like the example I gave about the woman who was the CEO and there was fraud within the business, that impacts you as a leader of the company. If you're a VP or a director in the company, I don't think it matters as much. Now, if the company's values are not aligned with your values, then I would suggest that you find a company that is. So that's definitely important. And there are companies that are, better at this kind of stuff than others. Now, there's also a lot of companies that are in the press about ESG all the time. So it comes with the territory, right? If it's something that was really bad that happened once, then that might affect, who you are. But I'll give you an example. Boeing, Boeing got into a lot of hot water, and they're actually headquartered in Chicago, or at least they were last time I checked. Companies have been moving around, but they got into a lot of hot water when a couple of their planes went down, and the board did not react quick enough. And were, again, a lot of scrutiny. They were in the papers nonstop. But, if you're a VP of finance, this isn't anything to do with you, right? If you're on the board or you're the CEO or you're the communications person or the PR person or the PR agency, then yeah, you're probably going to suffer a little bit because this is bad press for you personally. But I think it depends where you are in the business and how much of this is affecting. Now, if this adverse press is actually affecting the ability for the business to do business, right? I mean, we've seen companies go under because of such bad reputation. Then you should run. Then I would say run. But if it is just typical press that companies get, because every company is going to be in the press at some point, then it's not always something to really worry about. You have to evaluate the situation.
Great conversations, ladies. We are drawing to a close, but I see that Josephine had her hand up. Josephine, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you for the insights I've had, but I already posted in the chat, but I was asking because I see that some companies require that a board member must be a donor. This does not happen very much in our developing countries. I don't know how the presenter will tell us whether, sometimes it is an international company, and if you are not a donor, will that be a criteria for being taken to the board or not?
Yeah. So again, I'll talk generally about this, but maybe Katherine, you can jump in with some more local knowledge. But my experience is that yes, there are companies that do require you to be a donor, especially at the nonprofit level. I don't have an idea of what that donation looks like in your region, so Katherine can help there. Now, at some companies, you do have to invest in the company, and then you get a board seat as an investor, but that would be, I think, more at the corporate level, not at the individual level. Katherine, maybe over to you on that one too.
I think what we have seen here is that it is in the not-for-profit sector that sometimes board members are asked to be donors before they, as part of sitting on the board, they also need to contribute to the cause of the organization. That doesn't happen for, private companies, for-profit companies, but it's more in the not-for-profit companies. But again, not all of them, just a few of them, perhaps, who are struggling in terms of raising funds for their worthy causes. And so they insist that you help in that regard. Okay, great. Any other question before we close? We have just about 7 minutes to go. Ladies, if there is anybody who has a burning question, this is your opportunity to ask Naomi before I ask her to make any last comments.
Okay, it's me again. Okay.
Yes, Faith, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so mine is about board failure. When you join a board, what are the early signs that this board is going to fail in its mandate? Then I just also would like you to make a comment about navigating board politics.
Excellent. Let me just write that down. Okay. Failure. Yes. Before you join any board, you should be doing your research and due diligence, right, on any company to make sure that you can try and avoid the risk. You can't completely remove the risk, but there is always a risk, right? And also sometimes you join the board and in 4 or 5 years' time, there are issues, right, that the company is facing for whatever reason. Fraud happens all the time. You can have all kinds of things happening from the government, might restrict your business. And so all kinds of things can happen. However, there are some red flags that I think you can look for quite easily. The first one is look at the other board directors. So look at their backgrounds. Who are they? If you look at any of the big boards that have failed, Silicon Valley Bank, if any of you have a minute to research that, or WorldCom is another one. It's an American company that completely failed because the board failed, right? And if you look at the backgrounds of those board members, you go, why are they on that board? None of this makes any sense, right? So same thing, look at the other board directors. Obviously, you won't do this right at the start, but maybe as you're going through the interview process, make sure you have a good understanding of who the other board directors are. Do they have relevant backgrounds? Do they have board experience? What is their history? Do they have a good history? That would be the first thing. The second thing would be, if you are evaluating a company, a great thing to do, and this may not be possible, I don't know in the type of company, but if you can get hold of some financial statements, ask questions. How do you generate cash? What are the risks involved? Where do you see, issues down the line? And have a look at their financial statements, because usually you can see very clearly, or someone who is, who can interpret them, you should be able to see pretty clearly if that's happening. So, my real answer to your question is failure is going to happen. Be ready, right? Make sure you have insurance as a directors and officers insurance. I think is the same thing, right, Katherine, in Kenya? Yeah,
absolutely.
So, D&O insurance, you should have that. The company will pay for it. You shouldn't have to pay for it. But checking out the other board directors, checking out the background of the CEO and the CFO, always important. CFO background actually is really important. Somebody said to me, they don't hire a CFO until they've done a credit check. Like, how is their credit, right? Because if you're a CFO and you can't manage your own money, how are you going to manage my money, right? So have a think about that, and look at the board directors, look at the numbers. Does this all line up? Okay. And then second thing, someone talked about board politics. We also call it board dynamics, right? Which is where, you've got people that are not getting along, people that are working together. That happens too. We don't like it, and it shouldn't be happening, but it happens. My answer to you is, what are you willing to accept, right? What are you willing to endure, right, during your time on a board? You may have a very high stress threshold, and you may say, it's okay, I don't mind if there's a lot of drama, I can deal with it. Or you might say, you know what, I don't want that. That's a board I don't want to join, or at least a minimal amount, right? Because there's always something. You're going to have to get that. So I would say, well, what are you ready for? What are you willing to do? You have to deal with it. It's part of life. Anytime people are involved, right, there's going to be some kind of politics or dynamics going on. My advice to you is always stick to governance. Make sure you are following the rules. Make sure you are always looking out for the shareholders, the stakeholders, the right people, that you are not being, forced into a corner to do something that you do not want to do. Bring evidence. Somebody asked a question earlier, be prepared, bring evidence. If there's something you don't agree with, come with your evidence. Another good thing I give advice to people is get to know the other board directors on maybe more of a personal level, right? Have a coffee with them, have lunch with them. The more you know people, the easier it will be to have a disagreement and to move on from it, right? So don't, take the time to really get to know them. These are all good people. These are all people who hopefully are very experienced and have the knowledge. Yes, there are people who don't, et cetera, and you have to deal with them, and that's just fact of life. But if you get to know people, I think you can have a better relationship and work out your problems.
Wow. Amazing conversations. Naomi, it has been amazing. Thank you so much. But I'm going to invite one of our board members, Faith, to pass a vote of thanks. But before she does that, let me just make a few announcements. For those of you who are on the call and you're not yet members of the Women on Boards Network, please reach out to us. We will take you through the process of becoming a member so that we can grow this great network and influence diversity within the boards here in Kenya. A few upcoming trainings and events before I invite Faith. The first is the Women on Boards 10th Annual Conference 2023, which will be happening at White Sands, Mombasa, 27th to the 29th of September 2023. If you have not signed up for this great event, please do reach out to us, and Mrs. Wanga will be typing, Mrs. Wanga or Hannah or Kantai will type in the chat how you can get hold of us, including how you can become a member. The second event, upcoming event, is the corporate governance virtual program, which is coming up actually next week, 4th to 8th of September. You're not too late. We have a few slots left. So if you haven't signed up and you're available for this program, please do sign up. The program runs every day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and you have the rest of the afternoon to yourself. The third is the group board mentoring program, which we have a cohort starting on the 11th of November to the 4th of April 2024. It's a 6-month program. So if you want to be part of the group mentoring program, please do sign up as well. The last upcoming event I want to mention is the Women on Boards Awards. This will be the 2023 edition of the Women on Boards Awards, coming up on the 24th of November 2023 at the Radisson Blu Upper Hill, Nairobi. Please mark your calendars for that. We hope you have either nominated yourself or you have nominated other people. Look up the categories on our website and please let us know. Sign up to attend the event as well. Naomi, it has been amazing. Faith, are you on the call? Let me call on you to pass a vote of thanks. And Faith is our youngest board member at Women on Boards Network and chairing the Finance and Partnerships Committee. Faith, over to you.
Thank you very much, Katherine. And thank you everyone for joining the call today. It's such a great pleasure. I looked forward to this call for weeks on end. For those who know, I was about to go on maternity leave. I was really hoping the baby stays in until I get to attend this call. So I'm so grateful that I got to attend. And in fact, one of the things I've been researching about, maybe for the next call, is how to handle sitting on boards as you go on maternity leave. Do you get maternity leave from the board? Do you, continue serving on the board and aspects like that? But I think it's a good problem that we're young and we're sitting on boards and we get the opportunity to challenge status quo and just lift other women as we grow. So thank you, Miss Katherine, for putting this together. Thank you each and every member of Women on Boards Network for joining. Thank you for raising your hand and asking the questions. And most importantly, thank you, Naomi Kent, for sharing so authentically, so honestly. I loved your final comments on relationship. I know for some of the boards that I sit on, it really just helps to build those sort of networks and relationships. It makes it so much easier when you have to give pointers that probably everybody doesn't agree with. So thank you for that. Loved the example you gave about the lady in military where, she said she's just comfortable. And I was like, yeah, actually, maybe we need to get to the place where we don't even have to say I'm the only lady on the board, so we just normalize that as well. But so thank you so much for sharing from such a good place, so well and so authentically and so simply that we all, just understood and just loved the conversations. I'm happy that we had so many questions asked, a lot of them quite relevant to each and every woman in the room. And my prayer is that each of us leaves here with nuggets to go volunteer or get onto the next board. I'll be honest and say there's a board I really wanted to join this year that I didn't succeed for. And so on this call, you also encouraged us and said, there's that journey that we go through as well. So to encourage every woman as well, that if you miss out today, there's tomorrow. And so we live to fight another day. So thank you, Miss Kent. I've really loved meeting you. And I know immediately we got the invite, I sent you an invite on LinkedIn and you accepted. I'm honored to be connected to you on LinkedIn as well. So I encourage all the other ladies to do the same thing and reiterate what Miss Katherine said as well. If you're not a member, please join, please connect with all the ladies you're seeing here. quickly take screenshots and connect to them even after this and just start conversations. Let's learn from each other. And again, I just wish each and everyone all the best in our career journeys, in our board journeys, and let's look forward to those corporate boards, those global boards, and those boards in the US and in the UK and every other part of the world. So I wish you all the best. And I thank you yet again for joining. Thank you for all your contributions. Thank you, Miss Katherine, for allowing me to do the vote of thanks. I'm grateful. This is probably my last assignment before I sign off for my maternity leave. So I'm honored. Thank you very much. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward
No,
to
no,
another
thank you
session.
all. I really appreciate it. Like I said at the start, I'm so impressed with everything you're doing. And Katherine, Faith, and the board at Women on Boards in Kenya, you're doing a phenomenal job. And there's so much demand here, and there's so much great talent. So I wish you all the best. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. Any questions you have, or any way I can help. But keep doing the work you're doing. It's phenomenal. The governance programs and everything. This is how we create the next generation, right, of boardroom leaders. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody, and good day, Naomi.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done, Katherine.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katherine, and bye-bye, everyone.